Hi, Saxon. Just wanted to talk about this counter argument to Ripple from this guy. I don't know who this bloke is. Let me just see it in the bottom here. Yuan. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's not technically correct. The first thing he says is the company's big mission right now is to make deals with banks and other financial institutions. Use our blockchain technology, goes the pitch, and will help you transfer any currency to other institutions faster and cheaper. The first thing I will say is Ripple is just not focusing on banks and financial institutions. They're focusing on corporates, hedge funds, companies, anyone that wants to make settlement transactions. It's not just banks, it's basically the whole world that needs to make settlement transactions absolutely instantly. So even private clients, even me, for example, I'm waiting to get paid from my boss from ANZ Bank. The money gets put in on Monday and I don't actually receive it until Wednesday. So Ripple is focusing on the whole world. It's focusing on retail clients, mums and dads, everyone. And it's focusing on companies. It's focusing on everyone. People still haven't got it that Ripple can settle instantly. I don't know why people don't seem to understand this. If you do a transaction with Ripple, you get it literally within 3 or 4 seconds. I use Ripple a lot and it moves that quickly. Again, if I get paid by my boss for a salary and he pays it on Sunday night, I don't actually receive the money until Wednesday, which is really frustrating. So this is actually wrong. People use Ripple to actually get paid straight away and settle straight away. He also says the problem is the banks have little to do with Ripple. They don't need Ripple for transactions. They're going from fiat to fiat. That's true. When you look at the ex-current system, you don't need to use Ripple to actually make settlement transactions instantly because you can use fiat, which is obviously foreign currency. That's number one, that system. But the second system they have is X-Rapid, which includes the technology of Ripple and using Ripple's currency. Now, the technology, just using Ripple alone, which is X-Current, will save any institution or any person 30%. If they use Ripple, the currency, it'll save them another 30% in costs because foreign exchange is not cheap. If you're an institutional bank or a corporate or a big money operation house that can sell, whatever, toilets, and you're an exchange company an export company or an import company, foreign currency, depending on the size of the deal, you'll get fees taken out of that from the banks of anything up to 300 basis points, depending on the foreign currency pair. If the foreign currency pair is not liquid, you'll get absolutely smashed by the banks in terms of fees. So, for example, if I was in Australia and I was importing things from South Africa, which a lot of my clients used to when I was working in Investec, a private investment bank, and they were making, fences or windows, for example, they would have to pay Rand to South Africa and convert it from Aussie dollars. Aussie dollar Rand is not the most liquid currency, and if they had to do a forward contract, which means they had to pay a bill in, say, 60 days' time to the supplier in South Africa, they would have to use the Rand interest rate curve as well as the Aussie dollar interest rate curve, plus the bid offer spread on the South African Rand against the Aussie dollar. Because the South African Rand is so illiquid against the Aussie dollar, the buy-sell spread alone would be 150 basis points difference. So in other words, say you buy it at 5.6, and even if you made a mistake and you had to return it to the bank, you had to unwind it, the bank would literally charge you, for you to sell it back would be 3.5, for example, which would cost you well over 200 basis points. If you went down the forward curve, and what I mean by that is it's not a spot transaction, T+2, I trade today and 2 day settlement. But I trade today and it's 60-day settlement because the supplier on the other side wants 60-day settlement, you would have to go down the Aussie Rand interest rate curve for a 60-day settlement. Because you have more illiquidity, the further down that curve you go, that bid offer spread would all of a sudden become 5.6 against, say, 200, and all of a sudden against 560 against 200 basis points, and all of a sudden it's cost you 360 basis points from fiat to fiat. So he's missing the point. So from Aussie dollars to Rand and back again, it would cost you basically 360 basis points plus fees, other fees from the bank, just to clear foreign exchange, going from Aussie dollars, selling Aussie dollars, to buy Rand, to pay a South African supplier. That would cost the business, a small import business, 360 basis points. Now, the thing is, if I do it with Ripple, that doesn't cost me hardly anything. The most it would cost me is absolutely nothing. It would cost me 0.0004 of a basis point, not even half a basis point, compared to 360 basis points. This guy is completely missing the point and doesn't understand Ripple technology at all. And this is what frustrates me, because they think that all currency has the same liquidity and costs you the same amount of money. No, it doesn't. The less illiquid a foreign currency is, the more it costs you. The banks will charge you more and more and more. And so suddenly a transaction where you have to pay a South African supplier $1,000 to buy windows or supplies is suddenly, with the currency, going to cost you another $2,000. If you do it with Ripple, your costs stay the same. It basically costs you $1,000 with the supplier. But if I do it with physical foreign currency, it costs me another 500, 800, or 1,000, whatever it may be. It's extremely, extremely expensive. Plus, you've got the costs from the bank that you deal with in Australia to the bank that you deal in South Africa. And there may be a correspondent bank in between, because the supplier in South Africa doesn't have a bank that has a representative office in Australia. So this deal might have to go through a middle bank to actually clear in South Africa, which is all time delay plus more costs added to that transaction. This guy, honestly, this frustrates me when I read stuff like this, because they have no idea about the banking system. So I'm a corporate and I've got to pay a South African supplier, and if I deal with physical currency from the banks, I'm going to get slammed excuse me, by 3 separate banks, or maybe 4, to convert Aussie dollars to South African Rand. And it's going to cost me a fortune, because I have to pay the physical supplier in 60 days, which means it's not a spot transaction. And because it's a illiquid currency, I have to pay more the further out I go in time. So that's number one as well. It's, the fact, and then he goes on, the fact Ripple would tokenize currency, complete bypass and easy. I mean, that's exactly, he's missing the point. It costs a lot of money to convert currency when the currency is illiquid and when people don't transact with the currency often. And even normal currency, traditional currency, like the Aussie US, for example, you're still going to pay, on a small transaction from the bank, particularly at a retail level where you're doing small volumes, not a wholesale level where you're doing huge volumes. At a retail level, you'd be slammed with fees of anything from, $100 to $800, depending on the size of the deal, which is still under, say, 100,000, Aussie US deal. The banks are expensive, and there is a delay, obviously, in the settlement process. So people need to use the Ripple token or the coin, because the cost is literally zero to use, where foreign currency is not zero. The banks charge all the way, and you have to go through 3 to 4 different banks, depending on whether the supplier bank has a regional banking operation in Australia. If it doesn't, then a middle bank has to be used, or even a second middle bank has to be used to pass that money through to the supplier's bank account. Okay, so that statement, Ripple's owners are out in the cold, is completely bloody wrong. Ripple is not a public company, so there are no shares to buy. I mean, it doesn't make a difference anyway whether they are or not. But I honestly believe Ripple will become a public company and it'll become another Google. And also their shares will be worth a fortune. But just going back to number one, the dilemma of number one, Ripple also is investing in startups where the startups will use the XRP. That's another thing. The startups will use XRP, and that's why they're doing it. But, you know, the reality is everyone will use Ripple. No cryptocurrency out there can settle instantly in volume. Not one of them. And if you use any of the cryptocurrencies and try and, convert them from the exchange to your wallet or whatever, they take forever to settle. You know, no cryptocurrency has the capacity that Ripple does. Even on a retail settlement system that they've got, which is another system, I forget what it's called, they can do 70-odd thousand transactions very, very quickly. The second thing he says is Ripple is not a public company. Ripple could easily go public tomorrow. If Ripple goes public tomorrow and their shares are at, say, and I think there'll be a Google, their shares are at, say, $200 or $300, every other security that Ripple issues will go sky high because there will be an arbitrage. If you've got a security of Ripple's in the bond market or in the foreign currency market or in the money market or in the equity market that's at a high price, anything else that's at a low price, whether it be the crypto market, there will be an arbitrage. In other words, people will look at Ripple securities and go, this is cheap, let's sell the equity because that's expensive and let's buy the crypto, or vice versa. Traders and funds, investment funds, will switch between different securities which offer value of the same company. So, for example, if Ripple held a bond and the bond was valued at, say, 80 out of 100 and it had an interest rate of, say, 10%, but the equity, including dividends, was only yielding 6%, the equities would be sold and they would invest in the bond of Ripple. Just the same as the cryptocurrency. Basically, equity, bonds, money market type securities, or even crypto, they're all funding tools. So Ripple can do a bond issuance, get money from the investor. They can do an equity issue, get money from the investor. They can do a crypto issue and get money from the investor. But they're all funding tools for the company of Ripple. Now, Ripple is so cashed up, it has something like $25 billion in cash sitting on its balance sheet, that it doesn't need to issue anything. But if it did, all the arbitrages, which is basically looking at the company issuance or securities of Ripple, will look at all the different securities and work out which is the cheapest security. So buy one and sell the other, just like in anything. If the yield on one of Ripple's securities is 10% and one of their securities is 6%, they're going to sell the one at 6% and they're going to buy the one at 10%. Again, Ripple is looking at all industry, not just banking. They put on Lian. They put on lots of different types of industries, not just banking. And as I said, they're going to invest in startups. So again, this guy's a dick, an absolute dick. He said Ripple is not new for bank-to-bank trade. See, again, he's missing the frigging point. Foreign currency is expensive. And it's certainly expensive at a retail level or a small export or import company level, where you're doing, licks of 100,000 or 50,000 or 20,000, which a lot of small corporates, small businesses in Australia are doing. And that's where the banks rape and pillage. They rip off clients to smithereens, and clients are fed up with it. They get absolutely hammered, you know, on the foreign currency rates. It's no different to when someone goes overseas and they have to convert Aussie dollars to other foreign currencies. They get shown a retail rate by the banks, which will be 300 points worse than the wholesale rate. So again, banks rape and pillage retail licks of foreign currency. So in other words, if it's $20,000, $1,000, $500, $1,000, whatever, you know, 15,000, banks will literally take you to the cleaners. If you use Ripple, 0.004. If you want to convert, say, Aussie dollars to euro and you're going to Italy, you know, you had say $10,000 of Aussie, you convert it to euro at such a rate. Oh, and you've made a mistake, you bought too much, you got to convert it back to the bank. All of a sudden you'll find when you convert it back to the bank and get Aussie dollars back, you'll basically have $1,200 less, you know, out of a small amount of, say, 10,000. So again, banks rape and pillage on foreign currency, and he's missing the point completely. So what else has he got here? Governments and technology. I've got to say this is for everyone, not just Ripple, this government control. And the reality is Ripple has more compliance when it comes to governments than any other crypto. So Ripple will do well with the compliance side. Any other crypto that's secretive or, you know, attached to money laundering like Monero or maybe Dash or whatever, the private cryptocurrencies will not in the future last because governments will not accept them, or they'll make Coinbase show exactly who the holders of those cryptos are. The IRS, the Internal Revenue Service in the US, will want to know who those holders are, and they'll be dead in the woods, those cryptocurrencies. They will not survive. You know, again, Ripple has more to do with government compliance than anyone else. They know all the rules for bail for the banks. They know all the compliance rules. And the thing is, Ripple will win over everyone else because they know what they need to do. Again, this guy, you know, talked about the Bank of International Settlements. Ripple's already connected, you know, to all the major meeting groups of this, and, you know, they sit with the World Bank. They talk to everyone. They know exactly what the compliance is and what they have to do, whereas every other cryptocurrency out there doesn't. This guy has no idea. You know, no idea at all. And the way he writes this is just ridiculous, this article. You know, essentially, these are yummy elite club. You know, the thing is, Ripple will be the winner because they know what they need to do in terms of compliance with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the Bank of International Settlements particularly. And again, as I said, they're not just focusing on banks. They got a very big account, and I can number many, many different accounts. They've got a very big account out of China, Lian, which is one of the biggest, you know, buyer and seller, you know, businesses in China, and they're the only cryptocurrency that can you know, do payments in China. Recently, they got obviously the Central Funding Authority, which is not a bank, out of Saudi Arabia, which again is one of the biggest. You know, it's basically the funding authority for the government of Saudi Arabia. Very, very wealthy. Again, it's a sovereign fund, you know, which is not a bank. You know, they had the same issue as a retail person, you know, getting ripped off with foreign currency that the banks, you know, where the banks take out, you know, massive amounts of fees. So this guy's got it completely wrong. Absolutely, completely wrong. If anything, Ripple are going to survive more than anyone else. So I disagree with this statement totally. Totally. Then he's saying, I mean, this is, you know, what he's saying here about being bailed out and all this crap, this is completely irrelevant to Ripple. Completely irrelevant. It's got nothing to do with Ripple. Anyway, I mean, if anything, Ripple will survive over and above any other cryptocurrency. He's talking about government shutting down Ripple. Well, the thing is, if they shut down Ripple, they will shut down everyone. So it's not just Ripple alone. they will shut down the whole cryptocurrency, because Ripple is the most compliant in terms of government. That's another reason why the coin has not done very well, because there is a view out there that Ripple, you know, is a government, so to speak, government licking coin. You know, the reality is every other coin and token in the crypto market would be shut down before Ripple. So you can't have it both ways, mate, that's for sure. I mean, this is just dumb. This is just totally irrelevant. You know, in this day and age, we should be able to directly settle instantly. We should be able to get our funds instantly, whether we're a mum and dad, whether we're a small corporate, a small business, whatever. You know, we can get everything else immediately, but we should be able to get our money immediately. This is irrelevant to Ripple. What else does he say? Now he's going to decentralize cryptocurrencies. Ripple's technology is decentralized? Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. It might be owned by Ripple, the company, which is centralized, but the cryptocurrency technology is decentralized. The technology itself is decentralized. Has nodes, it's validated, it's decentralized. Lots of nodes all over the place. So again, he's talking crap. This is all garbage, absolute garbage. I can't even comment on that. Now he's going into technology of Swift. Oh yeah, that's interesting. The government's own Swift. Well, I don't think that's not correct either. And by the way, Swift has had more compliance issues than Ripple's ever had. They've been hacked. They've lost millions of dollars of money. They've cost the banks, you know, hundreds of millions over the years because they don't settle instantly and money has been lost. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So I don't know why he's talking about Swift. One minute he says it's bad for the governments to be involved, and then the next minute he's saying it's good for the governments to be involved. You can't have it both ways. No way. You can't have it both ways. Swift is not malicious. It's not. You can basically hack Swift. It's not. You know, you can't. It can be hacked by hackers. Money's been lost. You know, hundreds of millions of dollars. There's been fraud. There's been all sorts of things. With Ripple, it's very hard to do any fraud at all because of the way it works with a decentralized, distributed ledger. With Swift, you have people sitting at terminals, receiving and sending out messages, and the person needs to be sitting there in the US and Australia at the same time to confirm messages so money gets sent one way or the other, and it will generally take any time up to 2 to 10 business days, depending on the foreign currency. RippleNet is a completely different system to Xcurrent and Xrapid. So he doesn't know much about Ripple in terms of its technology. Completely different settlement system. One system uses the cryptocurrency and one system does not. RippleNet is just the overall umbrella system. It's not the specific technical system. Okay, so this guy doesn't know, and I completely disagree with this. He's a dickhead. Okay, so that's my view. Cheers, guys. It just annoys when people write about Ripple and they have no freaking idea about the market. You know, and he's bringing in all this other crap about the sanctions against nations. You can't, you know. Again, Ripple doesn't do anything that's illegal, you know, and Ripple is very mindful of the fact that you have to operate with bank and government controls, because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't. A lot of other cryptocurrencies don't do that, and they will not survive for the future. Anyway, I hope that helps, man, and yeah, see what you think. Cheers, babe.